The worst part wasn't the crowd. It was the way they pointed like she'd already been judged. Melissa Garcia stood in the center of the square, torchlight casting long shadows across hostile faces. Pack members closed in from every side, voices rising, fingers jabbing the air, nowhere left to hide. She didn't beg. Humans who begged in pack territory didn't get mercy. They got made into examples. And then the quiet man beside her shifted his weight, just once, like he was bored. The crowd sneered at him first, not because he was small. He wasn't. But he looked unimportant. Plain cloak, no pack crest, no swagger. The kind of man wolves ignored until they needed someone to blame. Melissa's throat tightened. If he ran, she wouldn't blame him. But he didn't run, and that's when everything changed. It had started 3 nights earlier, when Melissa crossed the boundary line with a satchel of bread and a head full of stubborn hope. She hadn't come for trouble, but trouble had been waiting for her anyway. Chapter 1. The alley reeked of wet stone and fear. Melissa pressed her back against the wall, counting exits she couldn't reach. 4 wolves blocked the only way out. Their eyes gleamed in the moonlight, and their smiles promised something worse than death. Human, one of them purred, stepping closer. You walked where you shouldn't. Melissa's heart slammed against her ribs. She'd crossed the boundary 3 nights ago, just long enough to trade for medicine. Anonymous. Quick. Gone before sunrise. Except she hadn't been anonymous enough. I didn't steal anything, she said, forcing her voice steady. The wolf tilted his head. Didn't say you stole. Said you walked where you shouldn't. The others laughed. It wasn't the laughter of men having fun. It was the laughter of men who'd already decided how this ended. Melissa noticed something then. Their confidence felt rehearsed, like they'd been given lines to recite and a role to play, like they'd been sent. You saw something, another wolf said, circling to her left. Didn't you? Melissa's stomach dropped. She had seen something. A courier in the market shoving a sealed scroll across a counter. A clerk's trembling hands. One line she'd glimpsed before the curtain fell back into place. Remove the witness. She hadn't known she was the witness until that moment. I don't know what you're talking about, Melissa lied. The lead wolf grinned wider. Sure you don't. That's when Melissa realized this wasn't about punishment. It was about theater. They wanted her to confess, publicly, where the pack could see her break. She glanced sideways, and that's when she noticed him. The quiet man. He stood 3 feet to her right, half in shadow, arms loose at his sides. No weapons, no armor, just a plain traveler's cloak and a face she couldn't quite read. She didn't remember him arriving. She didn't remember him speaking. But he was there, calm and still, like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. The wolves had ignored him completely, until now. One of them turned, sneering. This your friend, human? The quiet man didn't answer. The wolf stepped closer, testing. You got something to say? Still nothing. The wolf laughed and shoved him. Not hard, just enough to provoke a reaction. Enough to make him flinch, beg, or run. The quiet man didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. Melissa felt the shift before she understood it. The air in the alley tightened. The wolves' postures changed, just slightly, as if they'd felt a cold wind slip under their armor. The lead wolf recovered first, forcing his sneer back into place. Who are you supposed to be? The quiet man finally looked at him. His eyes weren't soft. They weren't cruel either. They were the kind of eyes that weighed a room and remembered every detail. Let her go, he said. 4 words. No threat, no pleading. Just final. The wolves hesitated. Melissa's breath caught. That shouldn't have worked. 4 unarmed words against 4 armed predators shouldn't have done anything except get him killed. But they were hesitating. You think you can stop us? The lead wolf spat, trying to rebuild his confidence. The quiet man didn't answer. He simply stepped forward, 1 deliberate step, and the wolves moved back. Not far, not fully, but enough. Enough to tell Melissa this wasn't a random traveler. This was someone they recognized. Someone whose presence carried weight they couldn't name but couldn't ignore. The lead wolf's smile faltered. This isn't over. It is, the quiet man said, and somehow, impossibly, the wolves believed him. They backed away, muttering curses and threats that sounded hollow now. One spat near Melissa's feet anyway, because cowardice always needed a last bite. Then they were gone, vanishing into the streets like smoke. Melissa stood frozen, her pulse thundering in her ears. The alley went silent except for the distant sound of voices and footsteps beyond the walls. She should have run. Instead, she turned to the quiet man and heard her own voice, thin and furious. "Why did you do that?" He looked at her, and for the first time something flickered in his expression. Not pity, not kindness, calculation. "Because they weren't supposed to find you yet," he said. Yet. That one word cracked open the fear she'd been holding in her chest. "Find me," Melissa echoed. "I wasn't hiding." The quiet man tilted his head toward the mouth of the alley. "Move." Melissa's body obeyed before her pride could argue. They walked fast, not toward the bright streets but the quieter paths behind shops and courtyards, where footsteps could be lost. He didn't ask her name. That should have comforted her. It didn't, because she already knew what it meant when someone didn't need your name to hunt you. They turned a corner, and Melissa saw it. An iron gate standing half open. A guard lantern swinging in the breeze. Her instincts screamed. Gates only open for cages. The quiet man kept walking. Melissa stopped. "Where are we going?" He glanced back, and his voice stayed low. "Somewhere they can't follow without permission." "Whose permission?" Melissa demanded. The quiet man's gaze held hers for one long moment. Then he turned and kept walking, as if the question didn't need an answer. Melissa's heart sank, because she realized the truth. The quiet man hadn't rescued her from being taken. He'd just redirected who would take her. Who is he really? And why do the wolves obey a stranger they should have torn apart? Chapter 2. A figure stepped out of the darkness beyond the gate. Broad shoulders, polished armor, the calm face of a man who'd decided long ago that emotion was a luxury. Miguel Cooper. Melissa recognized him from the market patrols, the guard captain, the one vendors feared more than they feared thieves. His gaze landed on Melissa first, then shifted to the quiet man. Something flickered in Miguel's expression. Too fast to name. Surprise, recognition, fear. "State your business," Miguel said, voice flat. The quiet man didn't speak. He simply held out his hand, palm down, as if offering nothing at all. Miguel's eyes dropped to the quiet man's finger. A ring. Plain silver to Melissa's eyes. Not plain to Miguel's. Miguel's posture changed in a single breath. He didn't kneel, he didn't bow, but his authority rearranged itself around obedience. "Inside," Miguel said, and the words sounded like a door locking. Melissa's pulse spiked. "Wait, I didn't do anything." "Protocol," Miguel replied, and refused to look at her. The gate shut behind them with a heavy clang. They were led through a narrow courtyard lit by torches that cast jittering shadows on stone walls. Guards stood at intervals, eyes forward, hands on weapons. Melissa felt the weight of their stares even when they didn't turn their heads. Miguel brought them into a windowless room, just 4 walls, a single chair, and a lantern hanging from an iron hook. He dismissed the other guards with a sharp gesture. When the door closed, only 3 remained: Melissa, Miguel, and the quiet man. The air tightened like a drawn bowstring. "You shouldn't be here," Miguel said to the quiet man. The quiet man's voice stayed low. Neither should she. Miguel's jaw clenched. "Rebecca Harris has already reported a human trespasser. She's calling it theft. She's calling it an example." Melissa's stomach dropped. Rebecca Harris. She'd heard the name in whispers. The woman who smiled while destroying you. The woman who made the pack believe they'd asked for the punishment themselves. "I didn't steal anything," Melissa said, forcing her voice steady. Miguel finally looked at her. "Then why did they corner you?" Melissa hesitated. If she spoke, she became a target again. If she didn't, she became whatever Rebecca labeled her. The quiet man watched her like he could hear her heartbeat. Melissa made a choice. Because I saw something, she said. 3 nights ago, a courier handing over a sealed order. I wasn't supposed to see it, but I did. Miguel's eyes sharpened. What order? Melissa swallowed. It said remove the witness, and it had a date. I memorized the line before someone pulled the curtain. A pause. Heavy. Dangerous. Miguel's gaze flicked to the quiet man, as if silently asking permission to be afraid. The quiet man stepped forward. Not aggressive, simply unavoidable. Rebecca is cleaning the board, he said, and you've been pretending not to notice. Miguel's mouth tightened. You're accusing a high-ranking... The quiet man cut him off, soft as snowfall. I'm stating what is. Melissa's breath caught. The quiet man's tone wasn't harsh, but it carried the kind of certainty that didn't allow argument. Miguel exhaled slowly, as if choosing to live. If Rebecca is involved, then she'll move fast. She'll make the pack believe Melissa confessed. Melissa's throat went dry. Confess to what? Miguel's answer was simple. To whatever she needs. The quiet man turned, his cloak shifting in the lamplight. He took it off in one smooth motion and draped it around Melissa's shoulders. Warmth, weight, recognition. A clear signal that she was not property in this room. Melissa's eyes stung with something she hated. Gratitude. Where's the proof? The quiet man asked. Melissa's voice came out small. Someone took it. The paper I was carrying. It had my trader's mark on it. The only thing that proved I was there legally. Miguel's expression darkened. Then Rebecca has it, and she'll use it to build her narrative. The quiet man's gaze stayed on Melissa. You need to speak first, at the gathering, before she writes your confession for you. Melissa stared at him. They won't listen to me. I'm human. She's... Power, the quiet man finished. Yes, but power only works if people believe in it. Miguel shifted his weight, visibly uncomfortable. The gathering is tonight. Rebecca's already sent the summons. She'll present Melissa as proof that human trespassers are a threat to pack security. Melissa's hands curled into fists. So I'm just supposed to walk into a room full of wolves and tell them their leader is lying. The quiet man's voice stayed quiet. Yes. And if they don't believe me? Then you won't leave that room, Miguel said bluntly. Melissa's fear turned cold and sharp. She looked at the quiet man, searching his face for some hint of a plan, some reassurance that this wasn't a death sentence. Instead, she saw calculation, strategy, the face of someone who needed her alive for reasons he hadn't explained yet. Miguel cleared his throat. There's one thing you should know. He turned to the quiet man, and his next words came out careful, controlled. My king. The title hit Melissa like a fist. She froze, staring at Miguel, then at the quiet man, Philip, as if seeing him for the first time. You're... Melissa's voice cracked. You're the Lycan King. Philip didn't deny it. He didn't confirm it either. He simply looked at her as if measuring whether the truth would break her or sharpen her. Not here, Philip said. Not yet. Melissa's mind reeled. The Lycan King, the ruler of the entire territory, and he'd been standing beside her in an alley, silent and unassuming, while wolves threatened her life. Why? Melissa whispered. Why didn't you stop them? Why didn't you just... Because I needed to see who sent them, Philip said. And now I know. A distant bell rang, one slow note that echoed through the stone walls. Miguel straightened. Rebecca's calling the gathering. Melissa's pulse thundered. What happens to me? Philip's gaze held hers. You walk into the light, he said, and you tell the truth before she writes it for you. Melissa stared at him, the cloak heavy on her shoulders, and realized she'd stepped into a war she hadn't known existed. And the most powerful man in the territory had chosen to fight it standing beside her. If Philip is truly the Lycan King, why is he pretending not to be? And what happens if Rebecca learns it? Chapter 3. They brought her to a room with stone walls and no windows. For your protection, Miguel said, but his tone suggested otherwise. Melissa stepped inside. A narrow bed, a single chair, a door that locked from the outside, a cage with better lighting. Miguel remained in the doorway, arms crossed. Philip stood just behind him, observing everything with that same unreadable calm. Pack law, Miguel began, his voice clinical, states that humans found in restricted zones without escort are considered liabilities. Melissa's hands clenched. I wasn't in a restricted zone. I was in the market. The market after curfew, Miguel corrected, which becomes restricted territory. I didn't know there was a curfew. Miguel's expression didn't change. Ignorance of law doesn't exempt you from consequence. Melissa felt the trap tightening. Every word she spoke could be twisted into evidence. Every defense became proof of guilt. So what happens now? She asked. Miguel glanced at Philip, then back to Melissa. Rebecca will present the accusation publicly. The pack will vote on whether you're a threat. Melissa's stomach turned. Vote? It's tradition, Miguel said flatly. Accusations require witnesses. Witnesses require consensus. Philip finally spoke, and Rebecca is very good at building consensus. Miguel's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. A knock sounded at the door. A guard entered, young, nervous, avoiding eye contact. Message from Rebecca Harris, the guard said, handing Miguel a folded paper. Miguel read it in silence. His expression darkened. She wants Melissa presented tonight, Miguel said. No delay, no further investigation. The guard left without another word. Melissa's pulse spiked. Tonight? That's not enough time to. That's the point, Philip said quietly. He moved to the door, watching the corridor beyond. Guards passed in pairs, their footsteps echoing on stone. Philip studied each one. Who walked with confidence? Who avoided his gaze? Who answered to duty and who answered to fear? Mapping loyalties in real time. Miguel crossed to the small table and began shuffling through papers, incident reports, patrol logs, detention forms. What are you doing? Melissa asked. Buying time, Miguel said without looking up. If I delay the paperwork, the gathering can't proceed without official documentation. Melissa blinked. You're helping me? Miguel's pen paused. I'm following protocol. Rebecca wants speed. Protocol demands accuracy. It was a thin excuse, but it was something. Philip returned to the center of the room. Melissa, what exactly did the order say? Word for word. Melissa closed her eyes, summoning the memory. It said, remove the witness. Market District. Third moon. That's all I saw before the curtain dropped. Philip exchanged a look with Miguel. Third moon. That was 2 nights ago. Miguel's expression went cold. Then whoever the witness was is already dead, Philip finished. Melissa's breath caught. Unless they think I'm the witness. Silence settled over the room like a shroud. Philip nodded slowly. You saw the order. That makes you dangerous. Not because of what you did, but because of what you know. Melissa's hands trembled. But I don't know anything. I don't know who sent it. I don't know who the real witness was. Doesn't matter, Miguel said. Rebecca only needs the pack to believe you're guilty. Truth is irrelevant if the story is convincing enough. Philip stepped closer to Melissa, his voice dropping. Rebecca's real power isn't strength. It's not even rank. It's consensus. She makes people believe their fear is justified. She makes punishment feel like protection. Melissa felt the weight of those words. So how do I fight that? You don't fight consensus, Philip said. You break it. Miguel looked up from his papers. The gathering isn't about discovering truth. It's about locking the pack into a narrative they can't undo. Once Rebecca tells the story, once the crowd repeats it, it becomes fact. Melissa's throat tightened. So I have to speak first. And you have to make them believe you, Philip said. Another bell rang. Closer this time. Louder. Miguel's face went pale. That's the summons. The gathering starts in 1 hour. Melissa stood, the cloak still wrapped around her shoulders. What if I can't convince them? Philip's gaze held hers. Then Rebecca wins. And everyone who saw that order, or knows what's really happening, becomes the next target. Miguel gathered his papers, visibly conflicted. If I keep delaying, Rebecca will know I'm stalling. She'll remove me from the case. Or worse, Philip added. Miguel met his eyes. I know. Melissa realized what she was watching. Miguel wasn't just risking his position, he was risking his life. For a human he didn't know. For a truth he couldn't yet prove. Philip turned to the door. Rebecca's already written Melissa's confession. She's already chosen the witnesses who will corroborate it. The gathering is theatre. Melissa's fear crystallized into something sharper. Then how do I break a script that's already written? Philip looked back at her, and for the first time something like respect flickered in his expression. You tell a better story, he said, and you make them choose which one they want to live with. The final bell rang, deep and final, echoing through the corridors like a countdown. Miguel opened the door. Guards waited outside, hands on their weapons. It's time, Miguel said. Melissa stepped forward, her legs threatening to buckle. The corridor stretched ahead like a throat swallowing her whole. Philip walked beside her, close enough that his presence felt like a shield. But Melissa knew the truth. Shields could break. Scripts could be rewritten. And Rebecca had already decided how this story ended. As the bell rings and the crowd gathers, can Melissa break Rebecca's script in time? Or will she become the example the pack needs to see? Chapter 4. The hall was packed. Torches lined the walls, casting flickering shadows over rows of pack members, warriors, elders, merchants, guards. Every face turned toward the center platform where Rebecca Harris stood, poised and polished in formal robes. She looked like justice personified. Melissa's stomach twisted. Miguel guided her to the front, his grip firm but not cruel. Philip remained at the edge of the crowd, hood drawn low, just another observer in the sea of faces. Rebecca's smile was warm, concerned, the smile of someone who cared deeply about order. Thank you all for gathering on such short notice, Rebecca began, her voice carrying effortlessly. We face a troubling matter tonight. A human was found in restricted territory, carrying falsified documents. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Melissa's pulse spiked. Falsified documents? She'd never carried anything falsified. This human, Rebecca continued, gesturing toward Melissa, was caught attempting to sell sensitive information to enemies of the pack. The murmurs turned to growls. Melissa opened her mouth. That's not... Silence, Rebecca said, her tone still gentle. You will have your chance to speak, after the witnesses. Melissa's blood went cold. Witnesses. A man stepped forward from the crowd, older, weathered, someone Melissa had never seen before. I saw her in the market, the man said, 3 nights ago. She was meeting with a courier. They exchanged something. Melissa's heart slammed. I didn't exchange anything. I saw a courier, but I didn't... Defiance, Rebecca said softly, and the word landed like a blade. The accused is speaking out of turn. This is noted. The crowd shifted, hostile, impatient. Miguel stepped forward. Protocol requires the accused be allowed to respond to each charge before... Rebecca's gaze snapped to him. Guard Captain Cooper, are you suggesting we ignore witness testimony? Miguel's jaw clenched. I'm suggesting we follow procedure. Rebecca's smile didn't waver. How noble, protecting a human over pack security. The crowd murmured approval. Miguel's defense became evidence of weakness. Melissa saw the trap snapping shut in real time. The witness is clear, Rebecca continued. The human was caught in an act of espionage. Pack law demands immediate sentencing unless proof of innocence can be provided. Melissa's voice cracked. I had proof, a trader's mark. It was in my satchel. Someone took it. Rebecca tilted her head, concern dripping from every syllable. You're claiming evidence was stolen? By whom? Melissa hesitated. If she accused Rebecca directly, the crowd would turn on her completely. If she didn't, she had nothing. I don't know, Melissa said, hating how small her voice sounded. But I had it. It proved I was there legally. Rebecca's expression softened with pity. A convenient story. Unfortunately, without proof, we must rely on witness testimony. Another figure stepped forward, a woman this time, face hard and certain. I saw her near the courier station, the woman said. She was nervous, hiding something. Melissa's hands trembled. I was buying medicine, that's all. For whom? Rebecca asked. Melissa froze. If she named anyone, Rebecca could twist it into conspiracy. For myself, Melissa lied. Rebecca's smile sharpened. Humans don't need wolfsbane extract for themselves, unless they're planning something dangerous. The crowd erupted. Voices overlapped, angry, frightened, demanding action. Melissa's knees buckled. I didn't buy wolfsbane. I didn't buy anything dangerous. Then where is your receipt? Rebecca asked. Where is your proof? Melissa had no answer. Philip remained at the edge, silent and still. His eyes tracked every face in the crowd, cataloguing who shouted loudest, who hesitated, who looked away, using the gathering as a map of Rebecca's control. But he didn't intervene. Melissa's chest tightened. Why wasn't he stopping this? Rebecca raised her hand, and the crowd fell silent. The evidence is clear, Rebecca said. The human trespassed. The human engaged with couriers. The human cannot produce proof of lawful intent. Pack law is simple. Those who threaten our security must be removed. The word removed hung in the air like smoke. Melissa's voice cracked. I saw an order. Remove the witness. That's why you're doing this. Because I saw... Desperation, Rebecca interrupted, her tone almost kind. The accused now fabricates conspiracies to avoid responsibility. The crowd murmured agreement. Melissa felt the narrative hardening around her like stone. Miguel stepped forward again. Rebecca, if there's any doubt, we should delay sentencing until... Delay? Rebecca's voice turned sharp. So the human can fabricate more stories. So she can endanger more of our people. The crowd roared approval. Miguel's face went pale. He looked at Philip, silently pleading for intervention. Philip didn't move. Rebecca's gaze settled on Melissa like a predator choosing where to bite. Kneel, Rebecca said. Melissa's legs refused. Kneel, Rebecca repeated louder. Or be forced. Guards moved forward. Miguel among them. Melissa met Miguel's eyes. She saw the conflict there, the duty warring with conscience. But duty won. Miguel's hand pressed down on Melissa's shoulder, firm and unyielding, forcing her to her knees. Melissa's vision blurred, not from pain, from the realization that even decent people could be turned into tools of cruelty when the system demanded it. The crowd fell silent, watching. Rebecca's voice rang clear. Unless proof of innocence is produced before dawn, this human will be exiled beyond the border, alone, unarmed, as a warning to others who would threaten pack security. Exile alone meant death. Everyone knew it. Melissa's throat burned. Please, I'm telling the truth. Rebecca's smile was soft, final. We all are. Guards hauled Melissa to her feet. Miguel didn't meet her eyes. They dragged her toward the side exit, away from the crowd, into the shadows where sentences were carried out quietly. Melissa twisted, searching for Philip in the crowd. She found him, still watching, still silent, and for the first time since the alley, she wondered if he'd ever planned to save her at all. Will Melissa survive the night long enough to be heard, or has Rebecca already written the ending? Chapter 5. They locked Melissa in a cell beneath the hall. Stone walls, iron bars, a single torch burning in the corridor beyond. She sat on the cold floor, arms wrapped around her knees, and tried not to think about dawn. Footsteps echoed in the passage. Melissa looked up, expecting guards. Philip appeared instead. He moved through the shadows like he belonged there, slipping past the watch stations without challenge. The guards didn't see him, or they chose not to. He unlocked the cell door with a key that shouldn't have worked. Melissa stared. How did you... We need to talk, Philip said. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. For a moment, the cell felt smaller, more dangerous. Melissa's voice came out rough. Why didn't you stop her? You're the Lycan King. You could have... Revealed myself too early, Philip finished, and lost the only advantage I have. Melissa's hands clenched. Advantage? I'm going to die at dawn. Philip crouched in front of her, eye level. Not if we move first. His tone was calm, certain, like death wasn't a fixed outcome, just a problem to be solved. I don't understand, Melissa whispered. If you're the king, why are you hiding? Why not just walk in and stop this? Philip was silent for a moment, choosing his words. Because someone is forging my authority, he said, using crown seals to issue orders I never gave, purging witnesses, removing threats, building a network of fear while I'm supposed to be away on state business. Melissa's stomach dropped. The order I saw. Remove the witness. That was forged. Yes, Philip said, and you weren't supposed to see it. That's why they came for you. Melissa's mind raced. So Rebecca is either the architect, Philip said, or the weapon. I need to know which. He reached into his cloak and pulled out the ring, the one Miguel had recognized. This seal, Philip said, holding it up to the torchlight, is the mark of the Lycan crown. Only 3 exist. 1 I wear, 1 is locked in the royal vault, and 1 was stolen 6 months ago. Melissa stared at the silver band. The symbol etched into it looked simple, but the weight it carried was absolute. Whoever stole it, Philip continued, has been issuing orders in my name, killing people, erasing evidence, building a coup 1 forged command at a time. Melissa's throat tightened. And you think Rebecca has it? I think she's using it, Philip said. Whether she stole it herself or is being controlled by someone higher, that's what I came to find out. Melissa looked at him, really looked. The quiet man from the alley, the unassuming traveller, the hidden king investigating his own court. Why me? Melissa asked. Why protect me specifically? Philip's gaze didn't waver. Because you saw the order. You're proof that the purge is real. And if I can keep you alive long enough to speak publicly, Rebecca's entire narrative collapses. Melissa's breath caught. I'm not just a victim. I'm evidence. Yes, Philip said simply. Footsteps sounded in the corridor. Philip rose smoothly, moving to the cell door. Miguel appeared, face tight with tension. She knows, Miguel said without preamble. Rebecca knows I delayed the paperwork. She's watching me. Philip stepped back, letting Miguel into the cell. Miguel looked at Melissa, guilt written across his features. I'm sorry for what happened up there. I had to. I know, Melissa said quietly. The system made you. Miguel flinched, but he didn't deny it. He turned to Philip, pulling a folded paper from his coat. Patrol routes. The evidence room is in the east wing. 3rd level. 2 guards rotate every hour. Philip took the paper, scanning it quickly. This is your choice, Philip said, meeting Miguel's eyes. Once you give me this, you're choosing a side. Miguel's jaw set. I chose when I saw you in that courtyard. I just didn't want to admit it yet. Philip nodded once. Respect passed between them, silent but real. Miguel glanced at Melissa. She doesn't have until dawn. Rebecca's moving the execution up. Midnight. Melissa's blood went cold. That's 2 hours from now. She's afraid, Philip said. Afraid you'll talk to the wrong people. Afraid I'll intervene. Miguel's voice dropped. There's something else. Rebecca's calling for an oath kneel tomorrow. She wants the entire court to swear loyalty to Crown authority, her version of it. Philip's expression darkened. She's consolidating power. And once they kneel to her narrative, Miguel said, they can't unkeel without admitting they were wrong. Melissa felt the trap expanding. So even if you reveal yourself, they'll be locked into Rebecca's version of the crown. Philip looked at her, and something flickered in his eyes. Not fear, calculation. Unless I prove my legitimacy beyond any doubt, he said. Miguel frowned. The ring seal isn't enough? The ring can be faked, Philip said. Rebecca will claim I forged it myself, that I'm an imposter. Melissa's chest tightened. So what proof do you have that she can't deny? Philip was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice low and certain. The silver wolf. Miguel's breath caught. Melissa looked between them. What's the silver wolf? The mark of the true Lycan King, Miguel said quietly. The original bloodline. Only the legitimate heir can shift into it. Philip's gaze held Melissa's. It's not just a form. It's proof written into bone and blood. Something that can't be forged or faked or argued. Melissa's pulse thundered. So if you shift... The court will have to kneel, Philip finished. Not to a story. To the crown itself. Miguel straightened. Then we move now. Get the evidence. Expose the forgery. Force the confrontation before Rebecca can execute Melissa or lock the court into her narrative. Philip folded the patrol routes into his cloak. 2 hours. We retrieve the proof, call an emergency assembly, and I reveal everything at once. Melissa stood, legs shaking. And if it doesn't work? Philip looked at her, and his voice carried the weight of command. Then the coup wins, he said, and the kingdom falls to whoever forged my seal. Miguel unlocked the cell door. We go now, before the guard rotation. Philip moved into the corridor, then paused and looked back at Melissa. You wanted to know why I chose your alley, he said. It's because I needed someone who saw the truth and lived, someone brave enough to survive long enough to speak it. Melissa's throat burned. I'm not brave. I'm terrified. Philip's expression softened, just barely. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's continuing anyway. He turned and disappeared into the shadows. Miguel gestured for Melissa to follow. Stay close. If we're caught before we reach the evidence room, this all ends. Melissa stepped into the corridor, heart pounding. The kingdom's survival depended on a stolen seal, a hidden king, and a human girl who'd seen too much. If Rebecca is forging the crown itself, what happens when Philip moves for proof? Will she kill the witness or the guard first? Chapter 6. They moved through service corridors like ghosts. Philip led, Miguel followed, and Melissa tried to keep her breathing quiet. Every footstep felt too loud. Every shadow felt like eyes watching. The evidence room stood behind a reinforced door. 2 guards flanked it, alert and armed. Philip didn't hesitate. He walked straight toward them, hood still drawn. Emergency audit, Philip said, his voice carrying the tone of someone who expected obedience. Crown protocol. Step aside. The guards exchanged glances. One frowned. We weren't notified. Philip pulled back his hood just enough to show the ring on his finger. Both guards went rigid. They stepped aside without another word. Miguel unlocked the door with a master key, and they slipped inside. Shelves lined the walls, filled with confiscated items, sealed reports, and evidence boxes labeled by case number. Philip moved with purpose, scanning labels until he found what he needed. A locked chest. Small, unassuming. He broke the seal with a sharp twist and opened it. Inside lay a folded document. Edges burned, ink faded, but the words still legible. Remove the witness. Market District, 3rd Moon, by Crown Authority. And at the bottom, pressed into wax, the stolen royal seal. Melissa's breath caught. That's it. That's the order. Philip studied it with cold precision. Same wax, same impression, forged perfectly. Miguel leaned closer. If we bring this to the council, Rebecca will claim it's fake, Philip said, or that I planted it. Melissa's stomach sank. So we have proof, but it's not enough? Philip folded the document carefully. Not alone. But combined with your testimony and the right stage, it becomes undeniable. He turned to Miguel. Call an emergency assembly. Now. Before Rebecca can prepare. Miguel's eyes widened. She'll know something's wrong. Good, Philip said. Let her scramble. 20 minutes later, the hall filled again. This time the crowd was confused, anxious. Rebecca stood at the platform, her polished composure cracking at the edges. She hadn't called this gathering. Someone else had. Miguel stepped forward, formal and unyielding. Emergency assembly. Procedural review of tonight's sentencing under Crown law. Rebecca's smile tightened. Guard Captain, this is highly irregular. So is executing a human without completed documentation, Miguel said, holding up a stack of papers, which, according to protocol, invalidates tonight's verdict. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Rebecca's voice stayed smooth. A technicality, easily resolved. Not a technicality, Miguel said. A requirement. One you ignored. Rebecca's eyes narrowed. Are you accusing me of misconduct? Before Miguel could answer, Philip stepped forward from the crowd. He didn't announce himself. He simply walked to the center of the hall, and the room fell silent. Melissa followed, heart pounding, the burned document clutched in her hands. Rebecca's gaze locked onto Philip. Recognition flickered, then calculation. "Who are you?" Rebecca asked, her tone pleasant but sharp. Philip didn't answer her. He turned to the crowd instead. 3 nights ago, Philip said, his voice carrying without effort, a human woman witnessed a sealed order being passed in the market. An order that read, "Remove the witness by Crown authority." The crowd shifted, uncertain. Rebecca's smile didn't waver. "Hearsay." Philip gestured to Melissa. "Let her speak." Melissa stepped forward, every eye on her. Her voice shook, but she forced the words out. "I saw a courier hand a scroll to a clerk," Melissa said. "I wasn't supposed to see it, but I did. It said, 'Remove the witness, Market District, 3rd Moon,' and it carried a royal seal." Rebecca laughed, light, dismissive. "A human claims to have seen a royal order? Convenient." Melissa held up the burned document. "This is what I saw. Someone tried to destroy it, but not completely." The crowd leaned forward. Rebecca's expression flickered, just for a second. Philip took the document from Melissa and held it high. This order was issued under stolen Crown authority. Someone in this court is forging royal commands. The hall erupted. Voices overlapped. Shock, denial, fear. Rebecca raised her hand and the crowd quieted. If this document is real, then it should be investigated. By proper channels, not by a stranger and a convicted human. Philip's gaze settled on her like a blade. "I agree. Let's investigate." He turned to the crowd. "Who here recognizes the authority of the Lycan crown?" Every hand rose, even Rebecca's. Philip's voice dropped, quiet but absolute. "Then kneel." The word hung in the air. No one moved. Rebecca's smile sharpened. "We kneel to the crown, not to strangers making accusations." Philip held up his hand, showing the ring. Several council members gasped. An elder in the front row went pale. "The royal seal," someone whispered. Rebecca's composure cracked further. "Rings can be forged, just like orders." Philip stepped closer to her. "You're right. They can." Then his voice changed, deeper, carrying the weight of command that couldn't be ignored. "Which is why you will submit this case to Crown Review. Immediately." The air pressure in the room shifted. Wolves throughout the crowd flinched, their instincts recognizing something their minds couldn't name. Authority, primal, undeniable. Rebecca's hands clenched, but she kept her smile. "Of course, Crown Review, that's only proper." She turned to the council. "Until the Crown itself investigates, the human will remain in protective custody. Not execution, but not freedom either." Melissa's chest tightened. She'd survived. Her story was on record, but Rebecca had pivoted perfectly, keeping control while appearing to cooperate. Miguel stepped forward. "I'll oversee the custody transfer." Rebecca's gaze slid to him, cold, assessing. "Will you?" she said softly. "How loyal?" The threat was barely veiled. The council murmured among themselves, some looking at Philip with new eyes, some still watching Rebecca for cues. The room had fractured, fear pulling in multiple directions. Philip had forced a crack in Rebecca's narrative, but she hadn't broken. An unnamed elder stood. "If this matter requires Crown Review, then we await the King's judgment." Rebecca's smile returned, full and warm. "As do we all." She looked directly at Philip. "When the King returns from his travels, I'm certain he'll resolve this swiftly." Philip said nothing. The assembly ended in tense, uncertain silence. Guards escorted Melissa away, not to the cell, but to a guarded room. Better conditions. Still a cage. Miguel walked beside her, his face carved from stone. As they reached the corridor, Rebecca's voice drifted after them. "Guard Captain Cooper." A word. Privately. Miguel stopped, his jaw clenched. Melissa looked back and saw Rebecca watching Miguel like a wolf deciding where to bite. As the hearing ends, Rebecca's eyes settle on Miguel like a blade. Who will she destroy to restore fear? Chapter 7. The guards came at midnight. Melissa woke to the sound of keys scraping metal. The door opened and 3 figures stepped inside, not the usual watch rotation. "Transfer orders," one said, voice flat. "You're being moved." Melissa's pulse spiked. Moved where? Doesn't matter. She recognized the tone, the same emptiness the wolves in the alley had worn. Orders without questions. Loyalty without conscience. She stood slowly, mind racing. "I need to see Guard Captain Cooper." "He's been reassigned," the guard said. "Let's go." Melissa's stomach dropped. Reassigned. At midnight. She stepped into the corridor. The guards flanked her, hands on weapons, walking her away from the main halls toward service passages, the kind of passages where sounds didn't carry. "This isn't the way to holding," Melissa said. "New protocol," the guard replied. They turned a corner, and Melissa saw it. A side door leading to the outer courtyard. Beyond that, the wilderness. The border. Exile. Without trial. Without record. Rebecca's counterstrike. Melissa stopped walking. "I'm not going." The guard's hand closed around her arm. "Not your choice." A voice cut through the darkness. "Let her go." Miguel stepped from the shadows, armor still on, face carved from stone. The guards turned. "Guard Captain, we have transfer orders signed by Rebecca Harris." Miguel held out his hand. "Show me." The lead guard hesitated, then produced a folded paper. Miguel read it in silence. His jaw clenched. "This isn't a transfer," Miguel said quietly. "This is an execution disguised as procedure." The guard's expression didn't change. "We follow orders." "Not these orders," Miguel said. He stepped between Melissa and the guards, hand on his sword hilt. The guards exchanged glances. 3 against 1. The math was clear. "Stand aside, Captain," the lead guard said, "or be removed." Miguel's voice stayed calm. "You'll have to remove me." The first guard drew his blade. Then Philip appeared behind them. Silent. Sudden. Absolute. One hand on the lead guard's shoulder. Not violent. Just present. The guard froze mid-draw. Philip's voice was soft. "Drop it." The blade clattered to the ground. The other guards backed away, instincts overriding orders. Whatever they saw in Philip's eyes made them choose survival over loyalty. They fled into the darkness without another word. Miguel exhaled slowly. "Rebecca will know. She'll call this treason." "She already has," a voice called from the far end of the corridor. Rebecca stepped into the torchlight, flanked by a dozen armed guards. Her smile was sharp, professional. "Guard Captain Miguel Cooper," Rebecca said, voice carrying. "You have obstructed lawful orders and aided a convicted criminal in evading justice." Miguel's hand stayed on his sword. The orders were unlawful. The conviction was a lie. Rebecca's smile widened. "The pack will decide that, after your trial." The guards moved forward, surrounding Miguel. He didn't resist. He met Melissa's eyes one last time, and she saw the resignation there. His loyalty had cost him everything. The guards shackled Miguel's wrists. He didn't struggle as they led him away. Rebecca's gaze shifted to Philip. "And you, the stranger who disrupts order and makes accusations without proof." Philip said nothing. Rebecca stepped closer. "You show a ring and demand obedience. You claim crown authority. But the king is away on state business. So who are you really?" Philip's expression stayed unreadable. "Someone who's seen enough." Rebecca's eyes glittered. "Not enough to stop me." She turned to her guards. "Secure the human. Double watch. No visitors. No transfers without my direct signature." Then she looked back at Philip. "As for you, leave pack territory by dawn, or I'll have you arrested for impersonating crown authority." The threat hung in the air. Philip held her gaze for one long moment. Then he turned and walked into the shadows. Rebecca watched him go, triumph written across her features. Melissa was dragged back to her cell, this time with 4 guards posted outside. She sat in the darkness, hands trembling. Miguel was gone. Philip had retreated, and Rebecca had just proven she could spin any chaos into her favor. The document they'd presented hadn't been enough. Rebecca had called it planted evidence, and without Miguel to vouch for procedure, without Philip revealing his full authority, the court had no reason to believe a human's word over Rebecca's polished narrative. Hours passed. Melissa counted her heartbeats, wondering if dawn would bring execution or something worse. Then a sound. Faint, metal scraping stone. A section of the wall shifted, a hidden passage Melissa hadn't known existed. Philip emerged, dust on his cloak. "We're leaving," he said quietly. "Now." Melissa stared. "The guards are watching the door, not the walls." He pulled her through the passage into a network of service tunnels. They moved fast, Philip navigating from memory. "Where are we going?" Melissa whispered. "To get proof Rebecca can't deny," Philip said, "and to end this before she kills Miguel to send a message." They emerged into a hidden corridor near the east wing. The evidence room lay ahead. With Miguel in chains and Melissa hunted, will Philip finally unmask, or lose them both? Chapter 8. The evidence room was empty. The guards had been called away. Rebecca's attention focused on Miguel's trial. Philip moved directly to a different shelf this time, higher, hidden behind administrative records no one checked. He pulled down a sealed box and broke it open. Inside, 3 more forged orders. Same seal, same wax, different targets. Melissa's hands shook as she read them. "These are execution orders. For witnesses. For guards who ask questions." Philip's expression was cold. "She's been purging anyone who could challenge her for months." Melissa looked up. "But the seal, it's perfect. How do we prove it's stolen?" Philip pulled out a small tool and scraped wax from the seal impression. Underneath, faint but visible, a hairline crack in the design. "The real seal was damaged 6 months ago," Philip said. "I had it repaired before locking it in the vault. The stolen one still carries the flaw." Melissa's breath caught. "So these orders are all fake. And Rebecca's entire network is built on them," Philip finished. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Philip moved them into the shadows as an elderly figure entered, robes marking him as a council elder. The elder stopped, eyes landing on Philip. "I thought I might find you here," the elder said quietly. Philip stepped into the light. "And?" The elder's gaze dropped to the ring on Philip's finger, then to the forged documents spread across the table. "How long?" the elder asked. "Since the beginning," Philip said. "I came back early, unseen, to find out who was killing in my name." The elder's face went pale. "The king has been here all along." "Yes." The elder looked at the evidence, at Melissa, then back at Philip. "If you reveal yourself now, Rebecca will claim conspiracy. She has half the council convinced you're an imposter." Philip's voice stayed level. "Then I'll give them proof they can't deny." The elder hesitated. "The Silver Wolf?" "Yes." The elder nodded slowly. "I won't stop you, but I won't help you either. Not until I see which way the wind blows." Philip accepted this. Neutrality is enough. The elder left without another word. Melissa watched him go. "He's afraid." "Everyone is," Philip said. "That's how Rebecca maintains control." A distant bell rang. Heavy. Urgent. Melissa's chest tightened. "What is that?" Philip's jaw set. "Rebecca's calling an oath kneeling. She's forcing the court to swear loyalty before I can act." Melissa felt the trap closing. If they kneel to her version of the crown, they can't unkeel without admitting they were deceived, Philip finished. She wins. He gathered the forged documents and turned to Melissa. "We end this now. Full court assembly. I present the evidence, you testify, and I reveal everything." Melissa's voice shook. "And if they don't believe us?" Philip's gaze hardened. "Then Rebecca starts a coup, and the kingdom tears itself apart." Melissa straightened, fear crystallizing into resolve. "No more hiding. No more waiting for someone else to decide if I'm worth believing." Philip studied her. "You're certain?" "I'm terrified," Melissa said, "but I'm done being silent." Philip nodded once, respect in his eyes. They moved through the corridors toward the main hall, to toward the gathered court, toward the moment that would decide everything. Behind them, a guard appeared, one of Miguel's loyalists. "Captain Cooper," the guard whispered urgently. "He's refused to confess. They're moving him to the platform. Rebecca's going to execute him publicly to prove her authority." Melissa's heart stopped. When? Now. Philip's expression went cold. Then we're out of time. The court bell rang again, summoning, demanding. Every choice had led here, every risk, every truth. Melissa followed Philip toward the hall, where Rebecca waited with a crown she'd forged from lies. As the court bell summons every rank, will Rebecca kneel to the crown, or trigger open rebellion? Chapter 9. The hall was packed tighter than before. Every council member, every guard, every pack leader within a day's travel. Rebecca stood at the center platform in ceremonial robes, radiant and composed. Miguel knelt on the stones beside her, hands bound, face bloodied but defiant. A clear message. This is what happens to those who question authority. Rebecca's voice rang clear. "We gather in crisis. Accusations have been made. Authority has been challenged. And so, to restore unity, I call for an oath kneeling." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Every member of this court," Rebecca continued, "will kneel and swear loyalty to Crown authority, to the laws that protect us, to the order that sustains us." She smiled, warm, reassuring, "or declare themselves enemies of the pack." The trap was perfect. Kneel to her version of the Crown, or be branded traitor. The crowd shifted, uncertain but compliant. Then Melissa stepped forward from the side entrance. Guards moved to block her. Philip's voice cut through the hall. "Let her speak." Every head turned. Philip walked down the center aisle, hood thrown back, ring visible for all to see. Rebecca's smile tightened. "The stranger returns. To make more accusations, I assume." Melissa reached the platform, holding the forged documents high. "These are execution orders," Melissa said, voice steady despite her fear. "Issued under stolen Crown authority. Everyone carries the same flaw, a crack in the seal that proves their forgeries." She laid them on the platform for all to see. The council leaned forward. An elder examined the seal, then looked up, face pale. "The crack," he whispered. "It's real." Rebecca's composure cracked. Planted evidence. A human and a stranger conspiring to. "Conspiring to what?" Philip's voice carried absolute command. "Expose that you've been forging royal orders, executing witnesses, building a network of fear while the king was away." Rebecca's eyes flashed. "The king is away. You are not." "I am Philip Rayner," he said, and his voice dropped into something primal, something that made every wolf in the room go still. "Lycan King, returned early, to root out the rot in my own court." The hall erupted. Rebecca laughed, sharp, desperate. "A claim, nothing more. Anyone can say they're king." Philip stepped onto the platform. "You're right. Words aren't enough." He turned to the court. "The crown carries one proof no one can forge, one truth written into blood and bone." Rebecca's face went white. "No." Philip's form began to shift. Not violently, not with spectacle, with inevitability. His body expanded, bones restructuring, fur rippling across skin like silver water catching moonlight. The transformation was fluid, ancient, undeniable. The silver wolf stood where Philip had been, massive, radiant, eyes burning with authority that predated laws and councils. The court fell to its knees, not ordered, not forced. Instinct, recognition, the primal acknowledgement of legitimate power. Even Rebecca's guards knelt. Rebecca stood alone, her network collapsing around her like smoke. "This is," her voice cracked. "This can't be." The silver wolf's gaze locked onto her. She fell to her knees. Philip shifted back, standing in human form, breathing steady. "Rebecca Harris," he said, voice carrying judgment. "You forged Crown authority. You executed innocence. You corrupted the law to serve your ambition." Rebecca opened her mouth, closed it. No words left. You are stripped of rank, Philip continued, removed from council, and confined until trial under true crown law. Guards moved forward, not Rebecca's loyalists, but those who'd been waiting for someone to restore order. They took her away without resistance. Philip turned to Miguel, still kneeling, and extended his hand. Rise, guard captain. Your loyalty is recognized. Miguel stood, shackles removed, disbelief written across his face. You risked everything for truth, Philip said. That service will not be forgotten. Then Philip looked at Melissa. The hall went silent. Melissa Garcia, Philip said. Human, witness, the one brave enough to speak when silence would have been safer. Melissa's throat burned. You are recognized before this court, not as property, not as criminal, but as the citizen whose courage broke a coup. The words landed like a brand, permanent, undeniable. Philip addressed the court. Let this be the last time a human is branded guilty without proof. Let this be the last time law is weaponized against the vulnerable. Pack strength does not come from crushing the weak. It comes from protecting those who cannot protect themselves. The hall absorbed the words. Some faces showed relief, others, shame. Change wouldn't come overnight, but the foundation had cracked. Melissa stood in the center of the hall, surrounded by wolves who'd wanted her dead hours ago. Now they couldn't meet her eyes. Philip descended from the platform and stopped beside her. What happens now? Melissa asked quietly. Philip's expression softened. You choose. Stay. Leave. Testify at trials. Rebuild your life. Melissa looked at the court, at Miguel, reinstated and whole, at the empty space where Rebecca had stood, at the kingdom that had tried to erase her and failed. I'll stay, Melissa said. Someone needs to make sure the words become actions. Philip nodded, respect in his eyes. The court began to disperse, murmuring, processing, choosing which future they wanted to build. Melissa stepped into the night air, finally free. The moon hung overhead, bright and clear, and for the first time since crossing the boundary line, she wasn't afraid. With the court kneeling and the world rewritten around her, what story will Melissa choose to live next?